The spaceship shuddered as it landed on the dusty surface of Seven, a barren moon on the edge of the outer colonies. Small clouds of rust-colored dust swirled around the landing bay, reflecting the weak light of the distant star. Lieutenant stumbled out, his body aching from the crash. His uniform was torn, streaked with dirt and blood. He had barely escaped an ambush from hostile aliens, and now, alone and exhausted, he didn't know if he could repair the ship. Each step felt heavier than the last, and his chest burned from the effort. He wanted nothing more than a safe place to rest, but there was none in sight. From the shadows of the jagged rocks nearby, a pair of bright eyes watched him. Crouched low, her small frame almost hidden by the rocks. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, and her hands twitched with nervous anticipation. She had never seen a human before. Her people had long believed humans to be fragile, incapable of surviving on harsh worlds like Seven. Yet this human, stood, stumbled, and continued moving forward as if the pain and exhaustion were nothing. Curiosity and an unfamiliar pull of sympathy stirred within her. Had grown up in a culture that valued observation and caution. Helping an unknown human was dangerous. He could be weak or sick or worse, aggressive. Yet something in his determination, in the quiet struggle etched into his features, made her heart ache. She wanted to reach out, to offer comfort in the only way she could imagine. She stepped forward, her movements careful, almost silent, until the dust clouded around her feet. Froze, startled, instinctively reaching for the small blaster at his hip, but his fingers trembled with fatigue and the weapon felt heavy and useless. He looked up and their eyes met. Her gaze was calm, steady, and full of something he didn't understand, concern. "You need help," she said softly, her voice musical but gentle. It wasn't like anything he had heard before, yet it carried a weight of sincerity that made him pause. He wanted to dismiss her, to tell her to leave, but the truth was obvious. He couldn't manage alone, not now, not like this. Shoulders slumped. He looked at the blanket in her hands, its surface glowing faintly with woven energy threads, technology unfamiliar to him, yet clearly advanced. I don't know if," he began, but stopped. The words caught in his throat. He was too tired to argue, too weary to resist help. Extended the blanket toward him. "You need it," she said. "I can help you clean up. We can make it safe again." She hesitated for only a moment, then added quietly, "You don't have to face this alone." Stared at her, noticing the small details he would normally ignore. The soft curve of her hands, the careful way she held the blanket, the subtle hum of energy flowing through it. He had faced danger countless times, but there was something entirely new in this moment. Something human, or maybe more than human, tugged at his heart, though he didn't yet understand why. Finally, he nodded. "All right," he said, his voice hoarse. I accept help." Stepped closer, careful not to invade his space too abruptly. She spread the blanket gently around him, brushing away dust and blood with precise, almost reverent movements. Her touch was light, respectful, but there was an undeniable warmth in it. Felt a strange comfort wash over him, something he hadn't felt in weeks, the feeling of being seen, of being cared for. "You've been through a lot," she whispered. "Let me help." Let out a tired sigh, the weight of the past days pressing down on him. "I didn't know anyone cared," he admitted quietly. Her eyes softened, and for the first time realized that humans were far more than what her people had imagined. They weren't fragile, they weren't weak. They carried hope in the darkest moments, and they inspired loyalty and courage in ways her species rarely understood. For now, though, all she could do was help him clean up, wrap him in warmth, and offer what comfort she could. She didn't know what the future held, didn't know if he would survive the night. But as she stood beside him, she made a silent promise. She would not leave him. Not now, not ever if she could help it. And in that quiet desert of Seven, two unlikely beings began a story neither of them could yet understand. A story that would test courage, trust, and the limits of human resilience. Sank onto the warm, rocky ground, the blanket held draped over his shoulders. The desert wind carried a sharp chill, and the soft glow of the blanket seemed to fight it back. Dust clung to his hair and uniform, but for the first time since the crash, he felt a small measure of relief. Knelt beside him, her hands moving carefully over the blanket. She brushed away the dirt and blood from his uniform, her touch gentle yet precise. Her people had taught her never to touch another being without purpose, but something about called for care. Even if it was dangerous, even if humans were unpredictable, she wanted to help him. You don't have to do this," said, his voice low and uneven. He wasn't used to someone being so careful with him. Most of the time, humans were on their own, taught to survive by themselves. To accept help felt strange, almost wrong, yet he didn't resist. His eyes softened as she continued. "I want to, you need it." Her voice was gentle, steady, almost musical. Every word carried reassurance. "You've been hurt, you shouldn't be alone." Swallowed hard, he had spent days hiding, running, repairing what little he could of his damaged ship. He had fought battles where allies fell beside him, where he was forced to leave friends behind. And yet here, in this quiet desert, a strange warmth reached him. He had almost forgotten what it felt like to be cared for. As worked, the blanket shifted slightly in her hands. At first, it was barely noticeable, a small movement under the soft folds, but felt it immediately. His breath caught. He looked at her, confused and wary. "Is everything okay?" he asked cautiously. Froze, her delicate fingers hovering over the blanket. Something beneath it was moving, though not from him. She hadn't expected this. Humans were strange, unpredictable, and apparently full of surprises. The motion came from the core of his suit, the small life support system integrated into his uniform. The delicate glow beneath the blanket pulsed faintly, weak and unstable. "Oh," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Her mind raced. She had studied human technology from a distance, but seeing it up close was different. Fragile, intricate, and yet somehow powerful, it made her realize just how resilient humans truly were. Even with a nearly destroyed suit, had survived. Noticed the change in her expression and followed her gaze. When he realized what she had discovered, a flicker of panic crossed his face. That's my suit's core," he said quickly. "It's damaged if it overloads." His heart beat faster. The hum from the core was uneven, almost frantic. Sparks of light flickered beneath the blanket. The desert air around them shimmered faintly from the unstable energy. His voice shook as he added, "It could fry the system, or worse. I can't fix it alone." Without thinking, wrapped the blanket carefully around the core, trying to contain the unstable energy with the faint bioelectric manipulation her people could perform. Her hands glowed softly, and she could feel the strain in her muscles. It was dangerous. Humans were delicate, and the energy she applied could harm him if she miscalculated. Yet she couldn't pull away. Watched her awe and disbelief mingling on his face. You're trying to stabilize it?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, biting her lip. "I won't let it hurt you, not while I can help." The moment felt fragile, suspended between fear and hope. Realized that for the first time in weeks he wasn't alone. Someone from an entirely different species was risking themselves to keep him alive. His chest tightened and a lump formed in his throat. It was more than survival. It was trust, and he hadn't realized how much he had missed it. The blanket shifted again, and sparks subsided slightly under her careful touch. Leaned back, letting her work, guiding her hands with gentle instructions. They didn't speak much, but the unspoken connection grew stronger with every second. Each movement, each careful adjustment, felt like a bridge forming between two worlds. For the moment was transformative. Humans weren't fragile, they were full of courage and resilience even in the face of danger. And in that instant, she understood why. They carried something inside them that her people could rarely comprehend, the will to survive, to fight, and to accept help without shame. For his part, felt something he had never felt in all his battles, hope. Maybe he wasn't as alone as he thought. Maybe someone truly saw him. And as the desert wind whispered around them and the faint glow of the blanket stabilized the core beneath it, a silent promise was made. One life was being protected by another, and neither would forget it. The desert was quiet again, but the calm was deceptive. His life support core hummed faintly beneath the blanket, stabilized for now, but the danger was far from over. The small sparks of energy that had flickered moments ago were a warning. If the system failed completely, the consequences could be catastrophic. His chest tightened as he realized how close he had come to disaster. His hands glowed softly as she maintained her control over the blanket. She could feel the human's pulse beneath her fingers, fast and erratic. It was strange, yet familiar in a way she could not explain. Her people rarely touched others in such intimate ways, especially not humans. Yet she could not pull away. Every instinct screamed caution, but her heart demanded action. "You have to stay calm," she said softly, her voice steady despite the racing of her own thoughts. "Panicking will make it worse." Nodded, trying to slow his breathing. He had faced life-or-death situations before, but this felt different. He was not fighting alone. Someone else's courage was woven into his survival. His trust in her was immediate, instinctive, and it scared him how much he relied on it. The core emitted a sudden surge of light, bright and alarming. Sparks jumped along the edges of the blanket, flinched. "It's too unstable," he muttered. "If it overloads, it could destroy this entire area." His eyes widened. Her species had technology to manipulate energy, but humans had devices that were fragile, volatile, and unpredictable. She could see the core struggling to contain itself. She adjusted her focus, spreading the energy from the blanket evenly, trying to stabilize it without touching it directly. Her hands hummed faintly as bioelectric energy flowed through her fingertips. The effort was exhausting, yet she could not stop. Reached out a trembling hand. "Let me help," he said, his voice strained but determined. He was the one in danger, yet he refused to be helpless. "I know how it works, you just don't touch the regulator." Hesitated, surprised. Humans were supposed to be fragile, weak, and easily panicked. Yet here he was, guiding her through the repair with calm logic and sharp focus. Her heart raced in admiration. "All right," she whispered, adjusting her energy output according to his instructions. Together, they worked as a seamless team, instructed and stabilized, weaving energy carefully to reinforce the suit's core. Each second stretched into an eternity. The sparks threatened to leap again, but she held them in check, balancing delicately between control and chaos. At one point, the core jolted violently and gasped. It's too much." "Not if we do this together," said firmly, her voice unwavering despite her fear. Her hands glowed brighter as she poured all her focus into the delicate task. For the first time, she realized humans inspired something beyond respect. Their courage was contagious. It pushed her to go further than she thought possible. The desert wind howled, whipping dust around them, but neither moved. Sharp mind and careful energy manipulation merged into one, creating a rhythm that held the unstable core in place. Slowly, the sparks subsided. The faint hum of the core steadied. Its uniform stopped flickering with dangerous light, and the blanket lay calm and warm around them. Slumped back against the rocks, exhausted, sweat dripping down his face. You saved me," he said, his voice raw with disbelief and gratitude. His chest heaved as she stepped back, letting the blanket settle fully. I couldn't let you die," she admitted quietly. Her hands still trembled from the effort. "Not when I could help." Swallowed, struggling to find words. Humans were not supposed to be extraordinary, but here he was, witnessing the incredible resilience of his own species and the bravery of someone willing to risk herself for him. He had always survived through skill, strength, and luck, but this was different. This was the power of trust and connection. The quiet desert air settled around them, carrying the faint hum of the repaired core. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, breathless, realizing that the danger had passed. Yet the bond formed in that moment was undeniable. His mind raced. Humans were not just survivors. They were courageous, clever, and capable of inspiring loyalty and courage in others. She had underestimated them for too long. And now, standing beside, she understood why her people often feared humans, even as she felt drawn to them. Leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. "I didn't think anyone could care that much," he murmured. His voice was soft, but heard the weight of truth in it. "Not like that, not for someone like me." Stepped closer, her eyes gentle. "You're worth caring for," she said simply. And in that simple phrase, a spark of something deeper ignited. Trust, connection, and the beginning of a friendship that might one day change both of their worlds. And so, in the quiet danger of 7, they discovered something powerful. Humans did not just survive, they inspired. The desert was quiet again, the wind softening as night slowly descended on 7. The sky was filled with pale stars, distant suns casting faint light across the barren landscape. Leaned back against the rocks, the blanket still draped around his shoulders. He was exhausted, but alive. For the first time in days, he allowed himself to feel relief. The constant panic, the running, the endless struggle to survive. It had all built up, and now, for a brief moment, it could rest. Sat beside him, watching carefully. Her hands were still warm from the energy she had used to stabilize his suit, and though her body ached, she felt a quiet satisfaction. She had helped a human survive, something her people rarely attempted. And more than that, she had realized the truth she had long ignored. Humans were more than just fragile creatures. They were resourceful, brave, and astonishingly resilient. You did more than just help me clean up," said finally, his voice quiet but steady. His eyes met hers, full of gratitude and something else she couldn't quite name. "You saved me. I don't know how to repay you." Shook her head gently. "You don't have to repay me. All I wanted was to help." Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. Yet beneath her calm words was the recognition that something extraordinary had just happened. A human life had been at risk, and she had risked herself to preserve it. His gaze fell to the blanket, then back to her. "I've been trained to survive," he admitted. "Fighting, escaping, repairing systems, I know how to handle emergencies, but I've never relied on someone else to care, not like this." He paused, swallowing hard. "And now I see why humans were capable of more than anyone thinks. We survive, yes, but sometimes we thrive because someone believes in us, like you." His eyes glimmered. She had expected humans to be self-reliant, fragile, and perhaps even reckless. But here was, showing her the courage, the wisdom, and the stubborn hope that humans carried deep within. And she realized with a quiet thrill that she was witnessing more than survival. She was witnessing human greatness. "Your people, they underestimate you," she said quietly. "They see only what is fragile, what is small, what can be broken, but you are more." Smiled faintly, though it was tired. "And I never realized until now how much a single act of help can mean." His eyes softened as he looked at her. "I think that's why humans endure. We inspire each other. We lift each other up even when it's hard." Felt a warmth in her chest, something unfamiliar but comforting. She had helped him, yes, but in the process she had learned something about herself and about humanity. Humans weren't just survivors. They were capable of inspiring courage, hope, and loyalty in others. They carried a light that could pierce even the darkest of places. Suddenly sat upright, a serious expression crossing his face. "There's more you should know." He gestured toward the edge of the rocks where the faint glow of his damaged ship was visible. "My mission wasn't just exploration. I was sent to retrieve sensitive data. Data that could change the balance of power in this sector, and if it falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy lives." Listened intently, her instincts alert. The stakes were higher than she had imagined. She had only intended to help a stranded human, and now she realized she had stepped into something far more dangerous. Yet despite the fear rising in her chest, she didn't hesitate. Her choice was clear. She would stay by his side, help him complete his mission, and protect him however she could. His eyes softened as he looked at her, and for the first time he allowed himself to hope. He had been trained to survive alone, to trust no one, but had proven something different. Humans weren't just strong. They could inspire strength in others, even across species. And now, in this quiet desert, he realized that trust and connection were more powerful than any weapon or shield. Reached out, placing a careful hand on his arm. "You're not alone," she said simply. Her touch was gentle, reassuring. "I'll help you, whatever it takes." Nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. For the first time since the crash, he felt truly seen, truly understood. And in that moment understood something profound. Helping him wasn't just about survival. It was about recognizing the strength of a species that refused to give up, a species that inspired hope even in the most desperate moments. The night deepened around them, quiet and calm, but both of them knew the danger was not over. Their mission, their struggle, had only just begun. And yet, standing together in the faint glow of the stars, they felt something neither had expected. The unspoken certainty that together they could face anything. The quiet of 7 shattered with a sudden flash of light in the distance. Squinted against the glare, recognizing immediately the scanners of hostile patrol drones sweeping the desert. His heart raced. The crash had left him exposed, and the sensitive data in his ship made him a target. He had faced danger before, but never like this, never with someone else depending on him, and never with stakes so high. His eyes widened as she noticed the threat. "They're coming," she said, her voice calm but urgent. She had never confronted armed patrols before, yet instinctively she knew she couldn't hide, needed her. She had helped stabilize him before, now she had to help him survive. Took a deep breath. We don't have time to hide. We need to move the ship, protect the data, and get off this moon. His voice carried authority tempered with exhaustion, but could see the flicker of fear in his eyes. He was human, after all, and even the strongest humans felt it. Together they hurried to the ship, guided carefully, pointing out weak spots in the hull and showing her how to operate the small systems that remained functional. She listened intently, absorbing every instruction. Humans were brilliant under pressure, she realized. The way anticipated danger, calculated risks, and adapted to each new threat was remarkable. As they reached the ship, a drone swooped low, its scanners sweeping over them, ducked instinctively but grabbed her arm. "No," he whispered urgently. "We move together. Use the blanket. It can shield energy signals." Hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. Wrapping the energy-diffusing blanket around the ship's core, she focused her bioelectric manipulation, creating a soft glow that masked their presence. Guided her hands with calm precision, explaining how the drones detected energy and movement. The first drone hovered dangerously close, its sensors probing for signs of life. Whispered, "Now, lower the signal, hold it steady." Her hands hummed as energy flowed through the blanket, shielding the ship. The drone's light swept past them, missing the human and alien duo completely. Exhaled softly, his eyes gleaming with relief. "Good work," he said, though the danger was far from over. Another patrol was approaching, faster this time. His heart pounded. She had never faced combat, yet she felt a surge of confidence. Humans weren't just strong, they taught others to be strong too. Following's lead, she adjusted the blanket's energy field, extending its protection over the ship's hull. Sparks of light danced along the surface, masking their heat signature. The second drone passed without detecting them. Glanced at her, his tired face breaking into a small smile. "You're amazing," he whispered. "I don't know how you did that, but it worked." Felt warmth rush through her chest. This human, so fragile, so resilient, so clever, had inspired her to do more than she thought possible. She realized something vital. Humans didn't just survive situations, they changed them. They found solutions when none seemed possible, and they lifted others in ways her species rarely could. The third drone was the biggest threat yet. It hovered closer than the others, scanning for life signs and energy fluctuations. Hands moved quickly over the controls, improvising a distraction. He activated a small flare, sending a pulse of light across the desert. The drone followed it, giving them a precious few seconds to move the ship toward a hidden rock formation. Followed movements exactly, adjusting the blanket's energy shield as they maneuvered. The pulse of light revealed her focus, her bravery, and her willingness to risk herself for him. The drone veered away at the last moment, narrowly missing them. Finally, they reached cover and let out a long breath. "We made it," he said, exhaustion and relief blending in his voice. He looked at, eyes shining. "I don't think I could have done this alone." Smiled faintly, her own breath ragged. "You taught me," she admitted. "Humans, you're incredible. You inspire others to act, to survive, to do things they never thought possible." Smile widened slightly, tired but genuine. "We're, maybe more than anyone expects," he said quietly. "Not just survivors, we're fighters, and when we work together we can accomplish things no one else could imagine." For a moment the two of them sat in silence, the desert wind blowing gently across the rocks, carrying a sense of calm after the storm. The danger was still out there, waiting for them, but the first test was passed. And in that shared victory, understood something she hadn't realized before. Humans didn't just endure, they inspired courage, bravery, and hope in everyone around them. And for his part knew something he had never allowed himself to feel before, that sometimes survival was not enough. Sometimes trust and connection made them stronger than any weapon, any technology, any odds in the universe. Night had fully fallen over 7, and the desert seemed even colder under the pale light of the twin moons. And crouched behind the jagged rocks, keeping low as distant patrol drones continued their sweep. Every shadow felt like danger, every gust of wind a possible threat. Yet, amidst the tension, a quiet understanding had formed between them. adjusted the blanket around his shoulders, still glowing faintly from energy. "I never thought I'd rely on anyone like this," he admitted softly, his voice carrying a mixture of exhaustion and wonder. "I've trained my whole life to survive alone, to solve problems without asking for help, but having someone beside me, it changes everything." His hands rested lightly on the blanket, her fingers brushing the soft fabric. "I've always been cautious," she said. "I've never stepped into danger like this before, and yet I couldn't leave you. Something about humans, you inspire courage in ways my people never taught me." Looked at her, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. "Inspire courage?" he asked quietly. "I thought humans were supposed to be inspiring each other, not the other way around." Smiled faintly, a soft glow in her eyes. "You are extraordinary. You fight even when the odds are impossible. You think clearly under pressure, and you trust others when most wouldn't. That's rare. That's inspiring." Felt a warmth he hadn't realized he needed. His life had been a series of battles, escapes, and repairs with very little human connection. Yet here she was, an alien from a species that had doubted him, telling him he was remarkable. It was humbling. It was moving. It was comforting. For a moment, the desert seemed to pause around them. The distant hum of drones faded into the background, leaving only the quiet between the two of them. Shifted slightly, letting his tired body lean against side. She tensed at first, unused to such closeness, but he didn't make any sudden movements. It wasn't inappropriate, it was human, a gesture of trust and need. "You've made me feel less alone," said quietly, almost to himself. "I didn't know it was possible, not here, not now, but you make me believe I can survive anything." His chest tightened. Her species had always been taught to avoid emotional entanglements with other species, yet she couldn't deny the truth in his words. Humans had something inside them, a spark, a strength, that drew others in, that demanded courage and connection in return, and had that spark. Suddenly the quiet was broken by a distant rumble. Eyes narrowed. "Patrols," he muttered. "They've changed patterns, they're getting closer." His body tensed, ready to spring into action. Mirrored him her own instincts, sharp and alert. Yet this time there was no fear. She had learned from him. Humans did not cower. Humans did not freeze. Humans adapted, improvised, and faced challenges head-on. And now she could do the same because he had shown her how. Looked at her, admiration evident in his gaze. "Ready?" he asked, a small smile breaking through the tension. Nodded, a determined glow in her eyes. "Always." Together they rose, moving quietly but swiftly toward the ship. Guided her through the safest path, teaching her the subtle ways humans assessed risk and opportunity. Every instruction, every gesture strengthened the bond between them. Trust wasn't spoken. It was earned through action, courage, and understanding. As they reached the ship, glanced at. "I couldn't have done this alone," he said again, softer this time, not because he had to, but because he meant it. "I don't just survive, I thrive because of humans like you." She blinked, caught off guard by his words. I'm not human," she whispered, her voice shaking slightly. "I know," he said, smiling faintly. "But humans have a way of inspiring others, and you've inspired me too. We're stronger together." The words hung in the air, quiet but powerful. For the first time, felt the full weight of human resilience, not just in survival, but in trust, connection, and courage. She had risked herself for him, but in doing so, she had discovered something she could never have anticipated. Humans didn't just survive, they inspired bravery in others, even across species. The desert night deepened around them, silent except for their careful movements and the hum of distant patrols. His hand brushed the edge of the blanket and met his gaze. In that silent connection, they both knew something vital. Together, they were unstoppable. Not because they were perfect, not because they were invincible, but because they believed in each other. And sometimes, that was enough to face even the impossible. The night on 7 was silent but tense. And crouched behind the ship, their bodies pressed low against the rocks. The distant hum of patrol drones had grown louder, echoing across the barren landscape. Time was running out. The sensitive data aboard's ship was too important to leave behind, and any delay could mean disaster. Checked the ship's systems again, his fingers moving swiftly despite fatigue. "The engine will only hold for a few minutes," he muttered. "If we don't leave now, we'll be trapped." His eyes narrowed. She could see the threat approaching, 3 drones moving fast, scanning for heat and energy signatures. Her hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from exhaustion. From the responsibility she felt for, she had never faced anything like this, yet she refused to let him down. Humans had inspired courage in her before, and now she would return it. "You have to trust me," said suddenly, turning to her. "I know you're scared, but this is our only chance. We move together or we don't move at all." Nodded, swallowing hard. "I trust you," she said simply. And in that moment the words weren't just empty promises, they carried the full weight of her heart. She had risked herself for him once before, and she would do it again. They moved quickly, slipping toward the ship, kept the blanket wrapped around the life support core, using her energy to mask their presence as guided her. One drone hovered dangerously close, its sensors sweeping over them. Whispered, "Now." Focused, holding the blanket's energy shield steady. The drone passed without detecting them, its scanners fooled by the subtle pulses of light she manipulated. Led them inside the ship, sealing the doors just as the second drone scanned the perimeter. Exhaled, leaning against the control panel. "We made it, but not by much," he muttered, exhaustion clear in every line of his face. Stood beside him, her body still humming with the energy she had expended. You're amazing," she said softly. "The way you stay calm, think clearly, and adapt, it's incredible." Looked at her, his eyes tired but shining. "Humans, we survive," he said quietly, "but sometimes survival isn't enough. Sometimes we need to inspire each other to do more, to face the impossible. And you've done that for me." A pause fell between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Had risked his life countless times before, but this bond, this trust, was new. And realized that humans didn't just survive, they inspired loyalty, courage, and hope in ways her species rarely achieved. Suddenly, a final drone swept toward the ship, the last obstacle between them and safety. Moved swiftly to engage the controls, but the engine emitted a warning. It wouldn't hold long. The drone descended, scanning aggressively. Acted without hesitation. She extended her energy through the blanket, creating a shield that diverted the drone's sensors. Sparks danced across the surface, but her focus never wavered. Guided her, matching her energy with precise maneuvers on the control panel. Together, they moved like a single unit, human ingenuity, alien skill, and mutual trust blending into one unstoppable force. The drone flared in confusion, its sensors unable to pinpoint them. Seized the moment, igniting the engines. The ship lifted smoothly off the desert floor, rocks kicking up behind them, and disappeared into the night sky. Both of them sank into their seats, hearts pounding. The danger was gone, at least for now. Looked at, a tired but genuine smile spreading across his face. "We did it," he said simply. Let out a soft laugh, relieved and exhilarated. "Together," she added. And in that word they both understood everything. The bond they had formed, the courage they had inspired in each other, the proof that humans were extraordinary in ways her people had never imagined. Turned to her, eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper. "I'll never forget this," he said. "Not the danger, not the fight, but you. You reminded me what it means to trust, to fight for someone else, and to never give up." His heart swelled. She had thought helping him was enough, but she realized now it was more than that. It was about connection, courage, and the undeniable strength humans carried inside them, a light that could shine across any darkness. As the stars of 7 faded behind them, ship soaring toward safety, they both knew something profound. Humans didn't just survive. Humans inspired, they fought, they endured, and they lifted others when it mattered most. And in that truth found a new respect, a new hope, and a bond she would carry forever. For the first time, she understood why humans were extraordinary, not because of their strength or technology, but because of their heart. And understood it too. Together they had faced the impossible, and together they had proven what humans could do. And that night, in the endless vastness of space, 2 very different beings shared a single truth. Sometimes survival is not enough. Sometimes humanity is about inspiring others to be more than they ever imagined.